Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. I'm on the friends and family tour here this week. We are doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. We'll get it back out on the road. I'm doing a cup of soup or bowl, and that'll happen in a month. That's all for charity. It'll be charity stories, my favorite week of the year. It's the most wonderful time. It's 2026. Football season's over. I know you're tuning in expecting me to bitch about that, but I'm not going to, because in the friends and family segment here, we're widening the stretch. It's baseball season, whether you want it to be or not. I know Bisciotti and Harbaugh and DeCosta and Lamar will have their moment, but pitchers and catchers reporting soon. Allen McCallum is our longtime baseball insider, historian, friend, and cheese hater. And it's not even about the Packers, like the Bears over the Packers. How are you, man? How's it going? It's been quite a time this offseason, right? Like, we're sending these WNST texts out every once in a while. It's football, but it's Shane Baz. They're going to go back with Eflin. It's not totality. And when I invited Joel Poiley on from Tampa, he's like, "Don't you want to wait till they're done doing everything?" And I'm like, I don't know when that's going to be. So, I mean, we're just in the middle of this. The Ravens are eliminated. I did want to get a little baseball onto the station and into my programming here, because it has been an interesting 8 to 10 weeks of off season on the baseball side. And I know you've been monitoring it, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy holidays, I guess, to everybody. Hope the new year goes well for them. I'll tell you what, it certainly hasn't been a boring offseason for the Orioles. This time last year, maybe a little beyond it, going into February, my thought was, well, the team he put together is only good if everything goes well. And I don't think that's going to happen. And we all saw what happened for 2025. And right now, I mean, you certainly can't say he hasn't been working. The last time we got together with Luke and had a conversation, I think that they had just hired the manager. And I think the conversation was they have a lot to do. And to their credit, Elias has been out working. We can certainly, the conversation I'm sure will be, what do I think of it? I certainly think the team's better. I think they had a lot to do. They've done a lot. They have more to do to really solidify themselves as a contender in the division and in baseball. But you certainly can't quibble with the amount of work on it that's gone into it. Am I happy? I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about what the club's going to look like, and I appreciate the fact that they've put their money where their mouth is, both literally and metaphorically, to attempt to put together a team that is worth watching in 2026.
You still have your season tickets or no?
I don't.
Right. A lot of folks had that going on, and then they signed Pete Alonso, and they do this and they do that. And for people that have had the tickets forever, you have to be pretty pissed off, or just financially disabled, or just disinterested in some way to television. I like staying home. I moved to Ocean City. Whatever the deal is that would make you go away. I'm talking about that on the football side for me. I mean, for me, it was an executive telling me here or there and then throwing me out of both of them when that was the plan all along. But clearly, duh. But the baseball side of it for the Orioles, Katie Griggs is speaking this week. I'm having breakfast with Katie Griggs on Thursday with 250 other people. But I'll hear what she has to say, and I've been in a room with her. I have not had the pleasure. She's emailed me once to let me know it would just be once. And I'm trying to get the vibe, especially with the Ravens stadium emptied out. People are pissed. They're 8-9, whatever. Not the corporate money, because that goes wherever the wind blows and wherever Lamar's giving an autograph and they're taking a picture or doing whatever they're doing. But real fans, real people, and people that are in the stands, like I was Sunday night in Pittsburgh, bundled up with Mike Tomlin's tickets. The baseball side of this and building enthusiasm when the football team doesn't have any right this moment, right, because of what happened to them. The Orioles didn't have that going on. And this is where I would leave it. The Orioles had a last place season on the field last year in a lot of ways. And the perception in baseball, as I sit here on my timeline, is that they've had a first place offseason, that they've been the best team or among the better teams in getting better. I don't know what that means for a last place team. I don't know what that
Right.
means when the Blue Jays were already good and got better, and the Yankees are whatever they are, and the Red Sox are trying to be, and Tampa always kind of sort of is to some degree. I don't know, but it's not. When Angelos was here, they gave Chris Davis money. There was a little bit of money here and again. Some of the guys, the Tillmans and some of the Gonzalez is sort of flared out, but Wei and Chen got paid elsewhere, and some other guys, Markakis got paid. So guys left and got Nelson Cruz left and got paid. There could have been more that Angelos always could have done. I don't know. This guy's come in and led with his ego, his bobblehead, his money, that they could outspend everybody and every. I see the fans saying, "I don't want one of the pitchers. I want them both. Give me Suarez." Like I hear all of that, and that's trying to buy enthusiasm and get people back down to the ballpark and stuff. I always go back to, you better have people more interested in baseball than lacrosse here, and that's
Sure.
something that they don't. They just let the offseason go by, and they just threw $150 million at a first baseman, brought him in, and it showed well to the insiders. I don't know that it does anything. A lot of people I know that don't follow baseball don't know much about Pete Alonso. So, like, it's not like they signed Willie Mays and they're just going
Right.
to put his name on the. He isn't that kind of signing. Certainly not in a town where the Roberto Alomars and the Rafael Palmeiros were much better known as they entered town than Pete Alonso is, for all the money that they gave him. You sent me a rather cryptic text, I believe, the day after they signed him.
They
And
are.
I don't know if I'm going to read from it or not here, but I can go back. That
I'm not in love with the deal.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the day they signed him, I woke up and I saw it and I was like, "Whoa!" And I sent out the message. I'm not sure I'm in love with this deal, is what I wrote. I'm pretty sure. I have warmed up to it more over time. Look,
Well, they needed to get somebody, right?
yeah. Look, the last time we got together, I told you I wanted him to go hard after Bo Bichette. I meant that. I still mean it. I doubt that's going to happen at this point. And I said that because Pete Alonso was a slugger. I believe in hitters. I believe that guys that actually are true hitters. Freddie Freeman is a pure hitter in the game right now. When the Orioles signed Roberto
My
Alomar,
favorite players of all time favorite players: Tony Gwynn, George Brett. I'm trying.
Ichiro,
Rod Carew,
yeah,
Ichiro, right? Like those were those. Like I liked Palmeiro until I met him. Those kinds of doubles hitters, right?
doubles hitters. I have said this for 20 years. I believe it firmly. And this is not a war and sabermetrics and all of that. If you ask me, would I rather have a team of 9 starters who hit 40 doubles a year or a team of starters who hit 9 guys who hit 40 homers a year? I take the team of guys that hits 40 doubles, all of them every year.
Because doubles leads to more singles, leads to more on base, leads to less flyouts, leads to less bad habits.
Doubles exemplify a style of hitting, line drives, good contact, which leads to walks. Invariably, 3 or 4 of those guys are going to hit 20 to 30 home runs in addition to the 40 doubles. On base percentage, batting average will be high. Home runs are all across the board. Albert Pujols is a unicorn. Shohei Ohtani is a one of one forever. But there are a lot of guys who hit 40 home runs and hit 210 in today's modern baseball. There are maybe not a lot, but when you look at
Mark Reynolds got work for a long time doing that, right? So did
Right.
Gorman Thomas. We can go through any of the sluggers in the history of the game, right? Dave Kingman.
And you can talk to me about, but a lot of those guys draw walks. That's great, but when that guy's on first base, he's clogging up the bases. That's what everybody's. I'd rather walk Barry Bonds when he's in his later years because he's not going to steal the base and he's going to clog up the bases, right? So I like hitters. Rafael Palmeiro, Roberto Alomar, Miguel Tejada. When those players came to Baltimore, they impacted the lineup in a way because they immediately became the best hitter on the team. And it trickled down through the lineup. Now, Pete Alonso is not necessarily that guy. And if you look at his numbers, I will say this. Statistically, he's a better hitter than I thought he was at the time. He's been really solid in the playoffs, which is an important thing. But he's still not a guy that I would say is a pure hitter, not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, one of the things that was missing from the Orioles lineup last year was the power and presence of Anthony Santander. He was gone, and you could see the vacuum in the middle of the lineup that it created. Not enough protection for Gunnar Henderson. Not enough backup for the other young guys in the lineup, and it cost them. Pete Alonso fills a void. I love the fact that he plays every day. That's a huge thing. I'm a full believer in the best ability is availability. Great. And I think back to the St. Louis Cardinals of the mid to late 80s, where you had a team of pesky guys who could hit or get on base, but not a lot of power. And you stuck Jack Clark right in the middle of that lineup, and it worked for them most of the time. Now, the Orioles do not just have pesky guys. They have hitters that can hit home runs. They have guys who have potential, and we use that word a lot with this team, to be all-around hitters. Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westburg, Jackson Holliday. We'll see what Adley Rutschman is. You would like to believe he's going to find his way back to the form he had two full years ago. Putting Pete Alonso in the middle of that lineup certainly brings protection for Gunnar Henderson, certainly allows the other players to work on other things. It doesn't mean they're not going to hit home runs, but it allows them to be themselves and not attempt to fill that void. So I do see that Pete Alonso is a player that can make the players around him better. But I really loved the idea, and I still do, of this team needs a pure hitter. Pete Alonso is not the guy I want Gunnar Henderson or Jordan Westburg to necessarily go have a conversation with.
Do you want Jackson Holliday to be that guy? Isn't that what you think he's going to be? Isn't that what you think Gunnar Henderson is, and maybe more of a slugger on his best day? Isn't that what Adley Rutschman was supposed to be? 18 home runs, 41 doubles, hit 289. Was he supposed to be Buster Posey? That's what they thought. They had a whole union, right, an army of that. Westburg might be the guy on this team that's that guy for me. That's going to be more doubles than home runs, but he's going to hit some home runs and probably going to be a 260 to 280 hitter.
I believe that we've seen Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson has the ability to be that guy. When healthy, Jordan Westburg has shown that has the ability to be that guy.
Colton Cowser does not have the ability to be that guy, right? Colton Cowser strikes out too much, right? For being the guy you want him to be.
If Colton's got it, he needs to show it, because he hasn't shown it yet. Jackson, I would like to believe has that potential, and he's certainly elevated dramatically in his second year above what he was in his first. If he follows that trajectory in his third year, he could be something really special.
Dude, I need to see him step up and look like an all-star this year, right? I mean, we're getting there, right? You
would think that he's somewhere in June, he should be approaching that guy if he's going to be that. So yeah, there are two or three guys on this team, and it would be a lot to ask for everyone to be that. But there are guys on this team that have the potential to be what we're talking about.
But Holliday hit 17 home runs and 21 doubles last year and almost 600 at bats. I mean, but he's a 242 hitter, and that's the problem, right? You're like, how does that ever become a 280 hitter, right?
In today's baseball, that's a question. Because
struck out 140 times, walked 56 times.
Teams I saw a stat that looked at basically sort of 20 or 30 years of Major League Baseball teams who hit 240 or below for a season. And if you look at the numbers, there were none through most of the first 10 or 15 years. And in the last decade, it has climbed dramatically. And that, to me, it just expresses to me what the problem is with the sport currently. This team shouldn't be a 240, 300 on base team. They have potential to be better than that. And if you look at the teams that win, they aren't that. So to get better, I believe Luke spoke to how the Orioles leadership are chasing slug, and I believe they should be chasing batting average and on base. And with that and the players you develop, slug will come. To me, it is signing Pete Alonso is indicative of what Luke believes the team is doing, and which is chasing slug. And I think this team will have a chance to win if all the players around Pete Alonso chase batting average and on base percentage in the process.
I think first off, Allen McCallum is here, our longtime baseball historian insider. Anybody who witnessed last year's disaster and looking at from the beginning of the year and how bad the pitching was and injuries and where they got off to could still look at this as we were still watching them play in August when Trevor Rogers came on and Bradish came back, even though they stunk and the games didn't matter and all that, and the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl and now didn't at all. But when people lost the plot at the end of last year and they dealt all their players, got 14 prospects, doing all the trading, doing all that stuff, right? I looked at it, upside for me and said, well, all of these guys aren't a spoiled bag of potatoes. They're not a bunch of failed prospects. They had a manager that got canned in the beginning of the season. Nobody seemed to mind that. They had a manager that looked like he was in over his head most of the time. Nobody seemed to mind that.
Right.
Bobblehead for the owner. I mean, these people don't really know what they're doing at all. I mean, they really don't. I mean, that's the thing that I've seen. They could spend all the money in the world. The Rubenstein and the Katie Griggs. They have no idea what they're doing. And I have no idea if Katie Griggs is going to shake my hand on Thursday or treat me like I'm a leper. But I know this community better than she will ever know this community, ever. And for her to not want to have a cup of coffee and learn about Highlandtown and Dundalk and Memorial Stadium and like the glue that's made this thing great when it was great, because it ain't been great in so long. Like that. It doesn't have any institutional memory other than what Greg Bader's given it. And
they've had some good runs. They had some good runs in the Showalter years, where they looked good for 3 or 4 years a stretch, and then the last 2 or 3 years before the pre.
But nobody really had any confidence when they're letting Nelson Cruz go and Mark that like it was not financially based, that it didn't
look sustainable.
Going back to Messina, yeah, it looked like Buck had come in here, guns are blaring with a young Machado and and a Adam Jones in his prime. And Luke and I were talking about this when we pulled into Pittsburgh the other day about like the Orioles' best chance was the 14 year, but I still think the 12 year when they lost in the Bronx, to me that was the night that we went up there to see them play the ultimate game in the Bronx to move on to the ALDS. That to me, or ALCS, that was to me the chance. And I still looked at it and said, well, it's Angelos. I mean, they're not going to sign Mark Teixeira. They're not going to be able to sign their own players. And this is before the Royals won or any of that. And the Giants were winning at that point. But for me, with the Orioles, belief in the ownership and the leadership that they will continue to do the right thing or have the capacity. The thing I've seen with these people is they have the capacity to spend money.
Look, we had
and that's great. That's cool. But I don't know what that leads to. I don't know what that means. But I do know that I am a believer that Westberg, Rutschman, Henderson, all of these, Alonso, I'm a believer. These are big league players. We're in a different space. I don't feel like the Angelos era anymore because these guys are willing to spend money. This Arrighetti guy's got an ego the size of the Inner Harbor. So they don't want to be losers. You know what I mean? They got into this because they're winners. So
we had the Gillick years where there were 2 or 3 years where they put together a good free agent team, but it wasn't sustainable.
But they still had the owner down telling the manager that Chris Sabo needed to play. You know what I mean? It was batshit. You know what I mean?
That led to 14 losing seasons. Then we got the Showalter years where there were 3 or 4 years where they made a couple of good trades. They put together a good team. But I think we all sort of didn't think that was sustainable. Under Mike Elias, what we were led to hope for was sustainability. And in theory, this team still remains, even through last year, and let's break it down. The first 6 weeks of last year were awful. They were awful. They fired the manager. Injuries. The pitching stunk. Players underperformed. They fired the manager. They brought in a guy who looked like he was over his head. But you know what Manzolino didn't allow to happen? He didn't allow them to collapse. And they got better. And through late May, June, part of July, they looked okay. They certainly didn't play above their heads to get back into playoff position, but they looked okay. Pitching got better. Guys sort of found them.
They got healthier.
And then they made all those trades, and you thought, wow, they're going to completely collapse in the second half. They have no bullpen. Laureano was arguably their most surprising hitter who was carrying the middle of the lineup, and they traded him away, and the team still didn't collapse. With all that said, so there were things to be out, even in the dismal nature of 25. There were things to look at and say, we still have pieces to be sustainable. They're putting money behind it now. They're making some moves. The goal now is still for this club to be sustainable and to be in contention for the next 4, 5, 6 years. A lot. I don't have my crystal ball's not fired up well enough to know whether that's going to happen. But they put themselves in good enough position. They still need more pitching. I really liked that they brought back Zach Eflin. I felt like I think Zach Eflin is a better pitcher than people gave him credit for. He had an awful year last year because of injury. Backs are things to be worried about. But I like that signing as a depth signing with potential to be more. I absolutely believe that Dean Kramer's not going to make it through this season because that forearm injury he had towards the end of the season really concerns me. That is the kind of injury that pitchers get right before they go under the knife. I pray I'm wrong. But Valdez and Suarez are still out there. I think this club could really use it.
But that's the thing, dude, you just said something that you never, ever could have said with Angelos, maybe going back to Scott Erickson and David Wells, and certainly with the stadium and the wall and pitchers not wanting to sign here, and certainly all the years when the team just stunk so bad that I don't want to go there because the owner sucks, the team sucks, like why would I sign there? And they're not going to pay me anyway. So it was always chicken egg with Angelos, which was a self-fulfilling prophecy of awfulness that he begat in our watch from Jeffrey Mayer on, right? And from Davey Johnson on, right? From Pat Gillick on. But look, dude, it's a new year. We all know how screwed up the world is. I don't need to tell you that. I'm Venezuelan. Since the last time we talked, we're now running the country. I mean, I'm sure we're going to do a great job because we have such great care and concern for the Venezuelan people and their oil. But, the world's a mess. But as we sit here, as screwed up as the Ravens are at 8-9, as screwed up as I think Rubenstein is as, this person, this famous guy who won the egotistical craziness and arrogance and their money and what they're doing, and that they've called this philanthropy, which is a joke. So all of the lying and all of the gamesmanship aside, from a baseball perspective, from a fan perspective, forget the empty seats and the Birdland thing and Katie Griggs and all of that. But we are sitting here right now debating whether the team would be willing to spend $150 to $200 million on a pitcher. And we both believe that they might do it.
Yeah.
Like literally, they might do it. So we've never been able to have that and as long as I've owned this radio station, for sure, since 1998, there has never been a pitcher, early market, mid-market, late market, their own guy, Corbin Burns, pick anybody you want. They've never been in the market to ever even think. Maybe on the Rex Barney show 30 years ago, little Allen McCallum say, maybe the Orioles are going to sign Catfish Hunter. No, they're not. So literally, the fact that we're talking about the two pitchers being out there and the Orioles are in on the hunt, and I wouldn't say I expect them to sign one of them, but because their endowment is larger than other people's endowment, and they want to show you how large their endowment is, especially that Arrighetti cat. And I don't just
Right.
mean the hot dogs he's running in, the hot dog suits. Um, I, I think these guys are gonna bring Christmas gifts, or in this case, maybe Hanukkah gifts, or grapefruit gifts in this case. Um, I think they're going to do it, and you and I are talking about it. And I just want to stop everybody in the audience and say,
Yeah.
Alan and I have talked thousands of hours on the radio, and we've never, ever been on the radio in any year or any time where the two best pitchers that are out there that they would be serious about coming or that the Orioles would sign either or maybe both of them. Who knows what these cats are doing because they have so much money. Well, great. Then go buy a great baseball team. We'll all have a good time. We'll pay $15 for beers and we'll come to Birdland. We'll do all of that. That's who they are, right? I mean, like watching it on the outside, they just need the attention. And part of this is where their attention's going. And they might actually spend $200 million on a pitcher here in the next couple of days, weeks, months. And that's just ain't never happened around here. And I guess that's my point of going back to how things are different. If you're a
Yeah.
fan, I guess that's good. We're going to spend a whole lot of money on pitching. As a fan, guess who's going to pay for it? You.
Look,
Yeah.
yeah, you are 100% correct. In all the years and all the times I was trying to be optimistic, I don't ever remember saying, "Oh yeah, they're going to go get one of the two, top tier pitchers out
Roy
there."
Halladay's going to sign here. Right, sure.
Because nobody wanted to come here, and even if they had the money, the Orioles weren't going to spend it. It was, look, the stuff they've done with the wall has changed the reputation of the ballpark. Even bringing it in a little bit last year, I think, didn't return it to what it was when the Camden specials were flying over the short portion 360 at 364 in left center. And frankly, I mean, you've got pitchers pitching in minor league ballparks. You've got Cincinnati. You've got Colorado. There are a lot of other ballparks that are worse to pitch in right now than Camden Yards. The beasts of the East, the Aaron Judges and Vladimir Guerreros of the world might give you a little bit of pause, but the thing that may be the most interesting of all to me in this offseason is that in years past, when free agents from the Yankees or the Mets went out of the market and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go look around and find different clubs to sign with," you just sort of shook your head and laughed because you knew nobody was going to spend the kind of money that the Yankees or Mets did to get them, and they were ultimately come back. And that's not the case in 26. I mean, Pete Alonso leaving New York and saying, "Baltimore, that's the place for me." That is a monumental thing that happened. I mean, I can't think of a free agent close to his prime, playing for New York already, going to sign for a team that is, I think, at best mid-market in the sport. Can you remember anything like that?
Well, Yankees would go and sign with the Red Sox or the Dodgers, or
right.
Mookie Betts would go from, basically you go from one rich country to another rich country is basically what you're doing.
Maybe Robinson Cano going to Seattle, but that was about a player who'd already made money, who was looking to create his own identity.
Well, that Pete Alonso is probably coming to Baltimore for that just the fact that the dude showed up, wore the suit, ran around, seemed like a nice guy, shot videos, talked to people. Hell, he'd probably call in and talk to me if he didn't know better. You know what I mean? Because he seems like a decent guy. So, and the decent guy part of it is sort of like, that's way different than that prick Aubrey Huff that I ran into down at the stadium, who would later call Baltimore shithole. That's way different than even, Jimmy Key, who was a great player, or just quiet, or BJ Suroff or whatever. This guy looked like he wanted to come in and wear a Superman cape and be the polar bear. And the way Tony Saragusa came to town and wanted to be the goose. There is a point where guys come into, but in football, it's always a wide receiver coming in and not D-Hop this year, which is different, but just sort of like to show me the money, the Rod Tidwell guy. But the Orioles, I don't look for arrogance, or I look for somebody that wants to be, to you said, wants to be here and wants to be a part of it, wants to have fun with it. I think that's Adam Jones's legacy with the pies, which I was never down with, but just sort of like Adam Jonesy, you know what I mean? Like he'd go eat burgers and that that serves the fan base well, and it serves to create the kind of memories that when people come up to me and tell me they love my cousin because they love Boog Powell, or they love Brooks Robinson, or they loved Eddie Murray, or in my case, I love Gary Renicky and John Lowenstein. Like, so whatever, Mike Flanagan, like, that's what links people to want to come back. And Alonso, for me, of all the players, and if I ran into him in the mall, I'd say this to him, right? Of all the players, and I've seen them all, that was that. Well done, well done. You
Yeah.
came in, you took a lot of money, and you look like you're not only here to earn it. You look appreciative. It looks like you chose us, and it makes me want to go get a Pete Alonso jersey and interview you down at Di Pasquale's and have some proper sausage. You know what I mean?
No question. And look, Helsley signed, and the pitcher escapes me, but he talked to a former Oriole pitcher who also pitched for St. Louis, who had been let go by the team. And if the story is true, said, hey, it's a good place to play. If a guy that got let go says to someone, you should go play there, that's a good place to play, that's a really good sign. That's not happening.
It could be a better place
right
to play. Baltimore should be a fantastic place to play.
Absolutely.
Ask Mike Messina how much fun he had here, right? And he wouldn't, but like the Cal Ripken. I mean, this was something special, and it's not anymore. I mean, Rutschman and Gunnar and these guys, whatever they see or they know from the last couple of years of this Angelos transition to this guy who makes his own bobblehead, but at least he's pulling his checkbook out and trying to make your team better. And I think if you're a fan here, if you feel like Jordan Westburg blossoms into, I don't know what you think of him, or like where, like I'm he's not George Brett, but I mean, he could be.
Westburg's my favorite player on the team. I think he could easily be a 280,
Scott Rowland, who's a Hall of Famer, but like a really good player that he won't have to go do that with the Cardinals or the Phillies, that Mr. Moneybags and Junior Moneybags, Arrighetti. And by the way, learn how to pronounce Arrighetti's name. He's going to be the owner. He's going to be the guy. It's his baseball. It's his ego. It's his thing. So like he's behind a lot of this. And I met him once. That was enough for me. But that being said, it's got his name on it now, and this money being spent and the frontage of all of this, it feels like it's changed in the last 12 weeks in regard to Alonso changing that. And they didn't invest in some jackass who came in here and, showed up for an hour at the Camden Yards and act like we were lucky to breathe the air. Alonso came, I mean, and I don't know if that was handpicked or not. If I knew Elias at all, I'd talk to him about the kinds of humans he wants to have in his building that aren't people like Justin Tucker. You know what I mean? Like the right kind of people, and like the people we grew up with, the people we grew up in the locker room with.
And that matters, Ness.
Even the guys that took steroids weren't bad humans.
It absolutely matters. And
Albert Bell was a bad human. Sorry. Let me correct that.
Another thing about the analytics era is that I do worry how much the human element is considered, and I want players that I can root for. I don't want to feel bad about the guy that I need to get a hit to win the game for me. So I want the clubhouse. I don't need the clubhouse to be kumbaya and everybody making Lego sets together. But what's happening in New York now? Guys getting jettisoned and speaking badly about the clubhouse. I mean, that's just not a good look. It's hard to root for teams like that. Look, the Blue Jays went to the World Series, and now they're the sexiest team around that isn't the Dodgers. And everybody wants to go play for them. Okay. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were not that. Hopefully, but what I really loved was watching Vlad. The passion that Vlad showed in the playoffs last year was infectious, and I think I'm guessing that players have saw that and said that looks like a place for me. You mentioned before we really started to get going that they're better. I don't know if they're better. They still haven't signed. They right now they're missing Bichette. They'll have Santander. I imagine they're hoping that he'll be healthy, so that sort of replaces production. And they signed Dylan Cease, but they lost Chris Bassett, who was an unsung hero on that pitching staff for years. They are unfinished. They could be better. I don't know if they're as good right now as they were last year. We'll see.
Alejandro Kirk's my favorite player, maybe ever. He's catching up to some of the all-time greats for me. So
he's a great hitter. The Red Sox, the Yankees and the Red Sox are sort of sitting in neutral. I mean, I know the Red Sox have made some moves, but if you let go of Rafael Devers because you want Alex Bregman to be your leader, and Alex Bregman doesn't play there in 26, they got problems. So I mean, the division is I sort of feels like it's a neutral. There are late moves that all these clubs can make. And let's look. I mean, look, the Orioles. I worry about their defense right now. If Colton Cowser is their center fielder in starting 26, that does not impress me. I think that they need to get a center fielder. I think they need to finish the bullpen, and I think they need a top tier starter. And if they get those things, then we can have a conversation about their real playoff possibilities in winning the division. But they've certainly put themselves in position right now to run with some clubs, despite some remaining deficiencies, to do something interesting in 26.
If you could get through to Priscilla, who is the gatekeeper for Michael Arrighetti, I'm sure he would say, we can afford that. We can buy that for you, and I think that they're going into that era of that a little bit with these guys in the hopes that you'll come back and give them money and fill the ballpark up, and that the money will fill in with media and this and that. But I don't think these guys are in any way prepared for a work stoppage next year too, which always sits in the middle of all of these conversations. Alan, come get a crab cake with me next month. We'll figure it out. All right. Spring training, February into March before opening day, which is in March, and here against the Minnesota Twins at the end of March. Doesn't feel like that far off. And once we shovel a little snow here, watch a little bit of football, you and I'll get together for a non-cheese related crab cake.
Thank you. Yeah, the situation with the work stoppage and the television rights, and the remainder of the off season are certainly topics that we can cover when we get together in a few weeks.
At least those Nats fans won't have to deal with Masson anymore. He is Allen McCallum. I am Nestor Aparicio. We are WNST AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Baltimore positive. It's baseball season. Pick your chins up.